Hello and welcome to the BCTV studios. I'm Jim Verzino, Director and Entrepreneur in Residence of Windham Grows, and we're here today to talk about the Slow Living Summit, this year with the title Entrepreneur to Table. Our first guest today is Orly Munzing, Executive Director of Strolling of the Heifers, and really the brainchild behind the Slow Living Summit. Hello Orly, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you, Jim.
You've been running the Slow Living Summit now for a few years. Tell us about how you got started, how the Strolling of the Heifers ended up doing the Slow Living Summit and the connection there.
Yes, this is our 16th year for the Strolling of the Heifers. And every year we've had a serious side to the Strolling of the Heifers, and we've had various serious summits kicking off the Strolling of the Heifers. We had women in agriculture, we had youth in agriculture, we had various issues for farmers and milk prices and so forth. And a couple of years back, I met Woody Tash, who started Slow Money. He came here, he was so impressed with the Strolling of the Heifers, and we had him do a slow living summit, as we called it at that point, as a kickoff for Slow Money. And we all sat there and thought, oh, this is a great idea, but what can I do as an individual to support my community? And you know, writing a big check, that doesn't feel right, and people around here can't. So what does that mean? So we brought all the folks who are involved in slow living, and slow living we define as slowing down and thinking about how can I support my community, my neighbors, my friends. It doesn't have to be just writing out a big check. There are a lot of people in this community that do that. In fact, I think the richness of our community is a real model for the rest of the nation in how a community comes together and volunteers and takes care of its neighbors and friends and so forth. But we need to do more. So we basically created the Slow Living Summit for people to come not just from Brattleboro, but from all over the country and share ideas of how we as individuals can help our communities grow. So we did that for a few years and included the arts, included agriculture, of course, and food. It was more general. But our community right now needs a lot of help in economic growth. As the listeners know, Vermont Yankee left, there's a huge shift, but it's a real opportunity as well. So Strolling of the Heifers listens to the community, listens to our folks who support the stroll, and as of last year, started an economic development program in our way to help this community grow. So the Slow Living Summit, including last year, has taken a more focus in economic development. So this year it's Entrepreneur to Table, and we're so glad, Jim, that you have come on board as the director of Windham Grows and also helping us direct the Slow Living Summit. We have Karen Cross. We're so excited to have native-born Jesse Kreitzer involved in helping us direct the Slow Living Summit, and Shanta Gander has also helped us. We have put together, once again, this is our 6th-year, top shelf conference with incredible people, and they understand what slow living means. Every speaker comes in and volunteers their time. The conference is very different than any other conference. It's all over town. We tell all the speakers that this is not a PowerPoint kind of conference. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear how you got to where you are. You know, if you want us to read something, give it to us and we can take it home and read it. So it's a very interactive conference, and we have lots of fun in it as well, as I'm sure you're going to go through. And the people that come year after year after year, and then we get people from who are joining us. There are people from locally. In fact, this year there are 2 people from India who are coming. Cool. We've had people from Norway, we've had people from England.
People all over the world.
And nationally, but mostly it's from the New England area. And of course our own community members as well.
Yeah, so much to unwrap there.
There's one other thing that I do want to say, is that the parade and festival is our vehicle for raising all the funds for all the good works we do year-round, such as Slow Living Summit, Windham Grows, the River Garden that we've overtaken with all the wonderful events that we have.
Yeah, so much to unwrap there. The first one really is Strolling of the Heifers is kind of a fun parade weekend, and if I'm hearing you correctly, it's almost as if the Slow Living Summit this year, Entrepreneur to Table, is kind of the thinking side that we do before the big party.
That's right. It's the serious side.
Right. Okay. So that's really cool, and I love the way at the Slow Living Summit, unlike other conferences, things happen in places all over town. So instead of being in a boring hotel with PowerPoint presentations, as you said, no PowerPoints, people tell their stories, people tell what to do. It's really cool.
Yes.
It's a really fun way to do it. And how is it that you sort of got into this and kind of came up with, you mentioned the Slow Money, he was the author of the book Slow Money, right? What was his name?
Woody Tash.
Woody Tash. So was he at the parade initially and then saw it and then
Yes.
and then recommended this? Is that kind of how this came together?
Actually, Ralph Maima introduced me to him.
Okay, so a lot of Brattleborians will know Ralph.
7 years ago, and Woody came specially to meet me and started talking about that. And he has heard so much about Strolling of the Heifers. And so we decided to put a summit together that year about slow money.
And this is 6 or 7 years ago.
This is 7 years ago.
Okay.
And from that, the growth of slow living came about, because he's talking about slow money, but we took it and created a tent to invite all the thinkers from various points
Right.
To come to the tent and talk about slow living, which
Okay.
is, I lead a very fast life, you lead a very fast life. But what this has helped me is to stop and think about how I see myself in my community, how I take care of my family, my friends, the food that I eat, how I support my community, because that's where, especially in today's world, that's where you really make a difference.
Yeah. So
that's all slow living is slowing down.
Right. So you're into the Stroll Parade for 7 or 8 years. Then we get the Slow Living Summit because
the parade
Mr. Tosh comes in.
This is our 16th year for the parade.
Right. But so it was 7 or 8 years ago that he came in and sort of brought the slow money piece of it, the slow living piece of it
Yes.
together. And then a few years later, you bring in something called the road pitch or the business planning competition. So now we've gone from just a parade, now we've got slow living involved, and then all of a sudden there's a business plan competition. How does that fit in?
Yeah, well, we ran the business plan competition with BDCC. They're our partners. In fact, they partner with us to do the road pitch as well.
Okay.
So we bring in the agricultural component to it, and they bring in the traditional component to it. It's a wonderful, wonderful relationship, and we just adore working with BDCC. And so we ran a business planning competition for many years, and from the business planning competition, the participants have all enjoyed it very much. We ran it for about 8 years, and we're still running it. And so for 8 years, the participants have told us that the money is great, it's sexy, it's not a lot of money. The top winner got $10,000, then there was $5,000, and then three third place winners each got $1,000, and we had 4 categories. So total, we gave out $60,000. But the main piece that each one of those finalists told us over the years is that the big takeaway for them was the wraparound consulting and the wraparound services they got while they were in the competition. And once the competition was over, that was it. So they're the ones who said, we wish this was more of a longer program where you can help us, the program can help us scale up businesses. And that's where Windham Grows was born. Once we did the competition for many years and saw that there's tremendous need and interest in scaling up small businesses that support farm and food, we decided to go full throttle and create Windham Grows. It was not easy. We got 4 funding sources, and of course, Strolling of the Heifers supports a great deal of it. And we were lucky enough, as we are all throughout the years, to have people with your caliber, Jim, and Karin's caliber, and all the wonderful people that have helped create Windham Grows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are.
And Karin came into it through the road pitch, right? So he had a business planning competition that he was doing across the state. He combined it with your business planning competition. That's when road pitch came in a couple years ago?
Yes. So while I was doing my business planning competition, Karin called me and said, so you did this business planning competition, that's great. I've just started this road pitch. Can we stop at the River Garden and maybe some of the finalists can do the road pitch? And of course, you know, I'm like, sure, that sounds good. And it led into an incredible relationship.
Yeah, and the road pitch is a statewide business plan competition that we'll get into a little bit later. And so the road pitch came in, and then between the combination of the road pitch, Karin meeting you, then Windham Grows and the demand from the participants, then Windham Grows kind of grew out of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. All right, our first guest we have today is Karin Cross. Karin is the entrepreneur in residence of Windham Grows and the founder and managing partner at Fresh Tracks Capital. Hello, Karin. Good to see you again.
Jim, thanks for having me on, and Orly too.
You met Orly through the road pitch. Was that a good experience? Road pitch at the River Garden?
Yeah. So in 2015, Road Pitch, which is an event that I created a few years ago, and it is it's a motorcycle tour of Vermont where about 50 riders who are investors and entrepreneurs and business people and business advisors travel around Vermont. We stop in 10 towns by pre-arrangement and work with a local organizer to have local entrepreneurs make a pitch about their startup companies or their existing businesses. And in 2015, we stopped at River Garden, and Orly and some colleagues of hers arranged for a pitch event. And that's the first time I had a chance to work directly with Strolling of the Heifers, and it was a great experience. And out of that, we started talking about some sort of a business accelerator based in Brattleboro, and that with a long circuitous interlude led to Windham Grows.
So that was the first time then that Windham Grows had been brought up, probably with a different name. I didn't realize the inception of the idea was so long ago. And
I think it was the fall, after that first road pitch.
Cool.
Which is about 3 years ago.
Okay. Wow. So a long time in the making was Windham Grows, for sure. And, just speaking of Windham Grows, I know that you're a busy guy, Karin, and now as entrepreneur resident in Windham Grows, you're spending, 20-25% of your time on Windham Grows. That's a big commitment. What is it about Windham Grows that got you thinking that this is a good way to spend your time as a busy person that really lives a couple hours away?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, I spent about a decade in Windham County, living in Windham County, so I have a soft spot for Windham County. And actually, my family goes back several generations in Windham County, so there's a good connection there. Number two, I was eager to do some work with some food product companies and farm-related businesses, and this offers me an opportunity to do that. Number three, I've been thinking about how to get to do some work with an actual accelerator program, because I believed that Vermont was both ready for one and in need of one. And so To my knowledge, this is really truly the first accelerator program for businesses in Vermont. So it seems like it's been a great 6 or 8 months here, getting the first cohort kind of up to speed, and I've been really happy to come down and spend more time in Brattleboro than I otherwise had.
And I got to say, we are super glad to have you. The accelerator is amazing. The kind of work we're doing there, you're right. I haven't seen it anywhere else in Vermont. I've seen it in Boston. I've seen it in New York. I've seen it out in California, but I haven't seen it right here in Vermont. So the work we're doing is super exciting. Wondering now about the Slow Living Summit and your participation in it, your thoughts about it. What is it about the summit that you think is such a good idea for Vermont and really for the entire region, not just Vermont, but the surrounding areas in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, et cetera?
Yeah, so I did have a chance last year to come down to the Slow Living Summit and present a discussion with Alan Newman, who's actually one of our road pitch riders and a friend of mine. This year, Alan, I know, is coming down to do a different talk that he'll lead with some adult beverage entrepreneurs, which is kind of Alan's specialty, and I'm going to help with a couple of discussions around financing or the financing pathways for growth companies and startup companies, which of course is my area of interest. One of the things I really love about the summit is it's unlike a lot of conferences. A lot of conferences, you go to some conference center or some kind of boring ballroom in a hotel or something like that, and you go through a series of kind of boring presentations. And what I love about what the way that Strolling has organized the Slow Living Summit is that it kind of spreads out around town, and it uses different venues, and it brings people back together in various locations, and it allows people to at lunchtime wander into the local restaurants and shops and get to know the vibrant downtown that Brattleboro still has, one of those communities that still has that. So I just think that the setup is unique, and there's an ambiance that's created that's just very, very different, and allows attendees to get to know each other and do some good networking.
So I'm thinking for next year's tagline, we should say, "No boring PowerPoints in sterile hotel rooms."
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, also the quality of the people there, including yourself, is just amazing. So I know, Karn, you're a busy guy. By the way, I wanted to congratulate you on your most recent investment, Drink Maple. It sounds really exciting. I know you've got to get going, but you want to explain Drink Maple to the audience for 30 seconds?
Yeah, so Drink Maple's a Vermont-based company out of St. Albans, started by a husband and wife triathletes. They wanted a hydration product for athletic activity. Realized that pure maple sap had a lot of those benefits. Created a company around that, kind of a aseptic squeeze bottle that can be easily carried and is easily portable when you're out and mobile. And then they created a second product out of that called Drink Melon, which is a watermelon-based hydration product also. So both of those are doing very well in stores. Primarily right now in the Northeast, but expanding fairly rapidly.
Well, if people are going to drink coconut water, I'm sure they're going to drink maple water. That's all I got to say.
This is a
Vermont
lot
maple.
better. This is a lot better than, believe me, the melon and the maple water are way better than coconut water.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait to try it myself, actually. Okay, Karn, thanks a bunch. This has been amazing, as usual, and we can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks at the summit.
Okay, thanks for having me. Take care.
We're here now with Lori Hanauer, founder of Global Roundtable Leadership and Slow Living Summit veteran. Hey, Lori, how's it going?
Just wonderfully, Jim. How are you?
I am doing great. So you're a veteran of the Slow Living Summit. Tell us how that began.
Well, I'm not only a veteran of the Slow Living Summit, but I'm a huge fan of Orly's, I will say, and the magic that she always weaves together. I came to the first Slow Living Summit and then was invited to be kind of the community weaver, or MC, of Summits 2 and 3, and I've also presented at another summit. So I'm so glad to be joining the summit again this year.
Community Weaver. I love the title, Community Weaver. Well, I don't know if we have one of those this year, but maybe we'll weave you into that role as well somehow. So before we get into what you're going to do at the summit, what kind of work do you do out there in the regular world? How does it apply to conscious business so that we can see how the attendees are going to benefit from your experience?
Well, thank you. I am the founder of a training and coaching company, and we place an emphasis on something we call our shared leadership framework, which is a whole different way to think about how we all lead all the time, relationally, that we are impacting each other all the time, and to think about and practice leading and sharing power and collaboration with everyone within the workplace. So it's culture work. It's culture work that we do within organizations and nonprofits and with networks.
Okay, so it's almost naturally associated to conscious business. And you mentioned you're a fan of Orly. So Orly, have you guys worked together several times before?
Absolutely. Lori is amazing. She's an amazing speaker, very thoughtful and very kind and very giving. And she totally understands the whole concept of slow living.
Cool.
And she helped us actually put together many of the steps and the evolution that the Slow Living Summit has taken.
Lori, clearly you've had a long history with it. Tell us, what are you going to be doing this year at the Slow Living Summit Entrepreneur to Table that the attendees will be able to take home with them and that becomes actionable for them?
So this year, and you mentioned conscious business, I'd love to touch on that a little bit more if we have time.
We do.
But this year, I will be coming to the summit with a fantabulous, amazing team member of mine, Jody Clark, who lives in Brattleboro, Vermont, and of course I'm in Keene, New Hampshire. And we are running a mini training and experiential, a workshop called Shared Leadership for Entrepreneurs. And we will be literally in practice together within this training on building the skills and practicing what it means to be a group of learners and a group of leaders, and what it means to lead together from different positions within an organization, or in this case, within a group.
Okay, lead together from different positions.
Collaboration skills of collaboration.
Got it. So as the entrepreneurs in attendance are growing their businesses, and even as they're brand new, they're going to be bringing in contractors and things like that. It's all around how they can be managing their collaborations?
Absolutely. I will tell you, and the leadership of their own organizations, right? I was raised within an entrepreneurial family, and with a dad who built 3 manufacturing companies. And he invited me to join his company, which I did for a decade. And ours was one of the very positive family stories. And when I entered his organization, I knew this from the outside as his daughter, but I did not have any clue to the impact until I was within his organization and there for 10 years. But he had I've come to really learn the extraordinary skills of learning how to, teaching and modeling how to empower everyone within the organization to show up fully and identify as leaders within their own roles and responsibilities, and also how to elevate each other, how to make each other look and be awesome. And something that we all did. And so I'm going to use manufacturing speak for a moment, but typically within the back of the house, which is the plant floor where the equipment is and where in this case, corrugated boxes were being manufactured, and the front of the house, which is typically where finance and sales and the executives sit and have their offices. There can be resentment, competition, a lack of communication, a lack of connection, a lack of even knowing each other as humans. Mm-hmm. And he just had such a gift and talent. It's a skill. It's a skill that we can all develop of how to build a strong, vital, meaningful culture where people love to come to work. Mm. And this had a huge impact on me as I went on to become president and chief operating officer of a ceramics manufacturing company in New Hampshire. And the owners were wonderful people and great artists, but did not have the same understanding of how to cultivate relationship and culture, the value of culture within an organization. And so many leaders have great ideas for products and for social impact, but they don't necessarily value the skills of how to lead people and have people lead together in a way that can create an extraordinarily powerful, meaningful, and successful organization that impacts so many people's lives, because of course work is where most of us spend 2/3 of our waking hours. And so it's become a passion of mine to teach these skills of empowerment and collaboration and openness to learn together, because again, we've even been so socially conditioned that if we are the leaders, we are the authorities, and that we need to know everything. Yeah. And of course that's ridiculous and puts a great false pressure on anyone who identifies as the leader. So this is really about shifting consciousness in how we lead, and then also strengthening the teams and the culture for the extraordinary ways that we can show up creatively and innovatively together.
Yeah, and I've actually sat through some of your classes, and I've got to say you are amazing at the way you make a group work and the way that you bring it together to communicate this kind of stuff and not just talk about it in theory, but really give solid ways to bring it home and bring it back to their...
This practice. Yeah.
Right, to bring that back. Well, listen, Lori, I appreciate all the time you've given us, and we are going to need to wrap up, and I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks at the Entrepreneur to Table Slow Living Summit. See you then.
Me too, with you, Jim, and Orly too. Thank you so much for all that you're doing to bring this success to our local community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are here now with Dr. Tamara Sten, Adjunct Professor of Sustainable Development at the SIT Graduate Institute, and an agriculture social entrepreneur herself as the founder of Kusikwi Clothing. Tamara, hi, it's good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
This is, how many times have you either spoken or attended the Slow Living Summit, by the way?
Oh gosh, I think since the very beginning. This might be my 4th summit. I did miss one when I was in Bolivia doing research. Okay. But other than that, I've been at every one. And actually, Kusikwi, that was one of the first places where we would show our product. It was at the Slow Living Summit back when the marketplace was just the commons of Main Street in Brattleboro.
Yeah, and I know that you're going to be talking about your book at the Slow Living Summit and how it can affect social entrepreneurs and agriculture and food entrepreneurs, but really quick 30-second summary. Tell us about Bolivia and Kusikwi Clothing and your sort of entrepreneurship experience that kind of brought you to the point where you could write a book about sustainable business.
Right. So I'm an entrepreneur. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs, grandfather, great-grandfather. We've all been business owners. And when I graduated college at the University of Maryland, my first job I had was to open my own advertising agency, because that's really my area of expertise is business development. And that was back in the 80s when we didn't even have this language of sustainability. And over the years, I've always had an eco-consciousness to the work that I've done. And my advertising agency was called New Visions Advertising because we were one of the first businesses working with recycled paper and working with soy-based inks. And, this is before anyone had the terms of, eco-ethical. But over the years, continuing to work in this, seeing the field of social entrepreneurism evolve, the idea of sustainability become more clarified, and seeing the needs that we have as a people on this planet, sharing resources to be able to be more mindful in how we produce and use our resources has helped me to really be able to move forward in the way I'm developing my businesses and talking about them.
Yeah, and
so
when you're
roundabout way.
yeah, and by the way, while you're not busy starting the multiple businesses that you've started, you went and got your PhD, and now you also are a professor.
Exactly,
Okay.
and the Peace Corps is actually what got me down to Bolivia, where I was able to see a different way of imagining living and business.
So you're a very busy woman, obviously. And at the summit, you're going to be talking about your book and how it applies to social entrepreneurs and agriculture entrepreneurs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So this is my second book. My first book I wrote about fair trade and looking at that question of is fair trade fair, and kind of really taking a critical view on institutions creating tools for others to use to be better in their business practices. And when I wrote this book, we had been a B Corp. I'd been a B Corp myself as a company. And I was looking at that model again of the checklist. What do I need to do to be a good company? And realizing, it's not so much about the checklist. It's more about the intention behind it and why am I following these checklists? And I was doing a lot of work with indigenous peoples. My work in Bolivia is with the Andean region, and they've done a lot of work themselves. And with the help of the United Nations and their own volition, they've created their own constitutional way of being called Sumat Kamana, which brings in a very holistic view of business, trade, commerce, and the use of resources. That coupled with my work in transition towns, I was very active in that a few years ago when we had transition Brattleboro and Putney, looking at the work of the transition towns, my work as an economist, and also working in social entrepreneurism. And as a business owner myself, I pulled all those pieces together in this book to create a tool that anybody can use that works with common business practices today. For example, using the business model Canvas, which is a publicly available tool for anybody to pick up any company and start creating new ways of looking at it that'll make it more sustainable.
So part of what
in doing that, you build your customer base, you have a more positive environmental impact, and it's just a lot more fun.
Cool. So in the couple of minutes we have left here, then what you're going to be doing then at the Slow Living Summit is working with entrepreneurs on how to use these models to bring out the most socially conscious. Why don't you tell me, what are you going to be working with in this set of tools with the entrepreneurs at the Slow Living Summit? How are you going to be working with them?
Yeah, so the book is written as a real off-the-shelf, hands-on toolkit. It introduces the sustainability lens, which is sort of like a giant magnifying glass that anybody can use to look at any aspect of their business and see, hey, how can we have more fun? How can we think more about the impact? Where's our social message here? So we'll have a chance. It's a hands-on workshop. I have free materials, workbooks. I have discounts for the printed book. But all of that will be available, and we'll be working together. So whether you have your own business or you have an idea for a business or you want to help someone with their business, I'll also have case studies. It's accessible for everybody. You don't need to have any kind of background in this. So we're going to be working from the perspective of somebody who's curious but might not have a company, all the way to someone that has a company they've been working with for a long time and wants to think about it differently. So the workshop will be accessible for all.
Cool. Orly, any questions for Tamara?
No, I've worked with Tamara for many years. She's very inspirational, very energetic, and she really knows her stuff. So I highly recommend people coming and attending her workshop, which is always inspiring.
It is always inspiring. As a matter of fact, if I remember looking at last year's reviews, the top commentary was on Tamara's sessions and how great Tamara's sessions were and how much people loved working with her. So can't wait to see you there, Tamara.
And Jim, you worked with me on those sessions too, so yeah.
Thanks, Tamara, and I can't wait to see your session at the Slow Living Summit this year. Your stuff is always great. And speaking of the summit, Orly, can you tell us a little bit about how people register for the summit?
Yes. The way people can register is to go to www.slowlivingsummit.org, or you can even reach it if you forget that. Go to strollingoftheheifers.com and look for Slow Living Summit, and you can get there from various places. The good news is that this year the summit is free. We wanted to make it accessible to anyone who is thinking of starting a new business or would like to check that world out. We have enough sponsors. We also are doing a little test this year, and it's amazing. We've asked people to make a contribution if they can at the end of their registration. And it turns out that there are quite a few people who are making contributions, and it's covering all the costs that we need covered. So we are really excited about that and appreciate everyone who does that. The summit is really filling up. It's going to close very shortly. However, our keynote speakers will be open to the public as well. So check out the conference. If for some reason it closes before you register, you can always attend the keynote speakers, and the schedule is listed on slowlivingsummit.org.
Okay, and just a couple more super exciting things about the Entrepreneurial Table Summit as we wrap up here. There's a few sessions that I think people will really love. If you're in the process of starting a business or thinking about starting a business, or if you already have your own, one of the things we got going is called Entrepreneurial Speed Dating, which is going to be super cool, where basically you'll have 60 seconds each. People will sit there, I'll talk about my business, tell you what I'm doing, you'll talk about yours, tell me what you're doing. If we think, hey, there's some synergy there, we swap business cards and move on. And it's just a really cool thing to do. I've done it in other contexts, and it's really fun. Another one that we'll be doing is some people will have the opportunity to pitch to real investors. So there's going to be a session on how to pitch, and then if you want to pitch to investors, we will have some slots available, and we'll have all the registration for that. If you want to do it, you'll see that at the summit, and potentially be able to pitch. And there's another one called Fail Fridays, or Fail Friday, which is really cool, where entrepreneurs will get up and tell their stories of things they've done that they've fallen flat on their face. I'll be telling at least a couple of mine. And basically, it's going to be a storytelling session of things that I thought were going to be great ideas and turned out not to be so great, and the lessons that we learned from them and how we take them on to the next thing. So we've got all those things coming. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So all those fun activities that Jim just talked about, that's June 1st, which is Thursday, and that's in the evening. And we have lots of hearty hors d'oeuvres. I mean, there's one thing with this conference: you eat very well.
It's a food entrepreneurship. Of course, there's going to be great food.
And there are incredible food sponsors for this conference. It seems like everybody is enveloping this conference and helping out. So I highly recommend everyone coming for it. And then Friday, of course, there's more sessions, great meetups, great people to meet. And then, of course, at the end of the summit, the doors open, and Main Street is a wonderful celebration of an agricultural Mardi Gras come to life in Brattleboro, Vermont. There's nothing like it. So everyone come down, enjoy, and if anybody wants to volunteer, we'd be happy to have you as well. We're just so looking forward to it, and I want to thank all the listeners for all the support you've given the Strolling of the Heifers for the past 16 years.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. After the conference, go out into the street. It's a giant party. We got to wrap it up now. We're looking forward to seeing you June 1st and 2nd for the Entrepreneur at the Table Slow Living Summit. And when it's over at about 5 o'clock on the 1st, on Friday, out into the street for the party. Saturday's a giant parade, giant festival. Sunday there is a
farmer's breakfast and
farmer's
the
breakfast, tour to Heifer, bike rides across Windham County.
And to visit, people can go visit the farms.
Visit farms. There's a whole bunch of activities. Go to strollingoftheheifers.com, strollingoftheheifers.com to see all that's going on. Can't wait to see you there.